Hey everyone. So, have you ever looked at a massive metal ship floating on the ocean and wondered, wait, why does that float but a tiny iron nail sinks right to the bottom? It's crazy, right? आज हम इस exact mystery को solve करेंगे. Today, we're diving into the magic of density to figure out exactly how floating and sinking actually work.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. Number 1, what is density? Number 2, sinkers versus floaters. Number 3, the rule of displacement. And number 4, a quick knowledge check. Let's get right to it. Section 1, what is density? Now, before we look at the math, what do you think makes some objects feel super heavy for their size while others feel really light? ये फर्क क्यों होता है? Well, in science, the density of a substance is defined as its mass per unit volume. The formula is literally just density equals mass divided by volume. इसका simple मतलब ये है कि हम देखते हैं कि एक specific volume, यानी दी गई space में कितना mass packed है. Remember these three words: density, mass, and volume. To put it simply, density is just a measure of how heavy something is compared to its size, meaning its volume. ये एक master rule है, guys. This is the one big rule that determines whether an object will just chill on the surface of the water या फिर सीधा bottom पर sink कर जाएगा. अगर object अपनी size के हिसाब से ज़्यादा heavy है, its density is high. Make sense? All right, moving on to section 2, sinkers versus floaters. Now, what's really interesting about this is how we can classify materials based completely on their density relative to water. Take a look at activity 8.1. We've got a solid ball of clay in a glass of water and, well, it goes straight to the bottom. क्यों? Because clay is denser than water. Clay की density पानी से definitely ज़्यादा होती है, which is exactly why it acts as a sinker. So let's lock in this rule. A large ball of clay sinks, right? But what if we break off just a tiny piece of clay? Guess what? It also sinks. अगर आप clay ball का size छोटा भी कर दें, वो फिर भी sink करेगी, because reducing the size doesn't change the material's actual density. The density remains exactly the same regardless of size. Pretty cool, right? On the flip side, let's look at activity 8.3. Here, we're comparing equal volumes of wood and water using a beam balance. See how the side with the water goes down? ये clearly show करता है कि the piece of wood actually weighs less than an equal volume of water. So that firmly puts wood into our floater category. Because wood weighs less than an equal volume of water, it is less dense than water. और rule बहुत simple है. Lower density guarantees floating. और ये rule हमेशा apply होता है. No matter how big or small the piece of wood is, एक छोटा piece हो या बड़ा log, it will float for sure. Let's do a quick recap of this classification step. On one side, we have wood. It is less dense than water, therefore it floats. On the exact opposite side, we have clay. It is more dense than water, therefore it sinks. The magic words to remember here are dense and volume. अगर material dense है, compared to the volume of water, it's going to sink. Okay, section 3, the rule of displacement. Now, you might be wondering, we just established that dense things sink, right? And metal is way denser than water. तो फिर इसके पीछे क्या science काम कर रही है? Here is a big question for you to think about. Why does a small iron nail sink while a giant, heavy metal boat floats? Take a quick second, अपने mind में इसका logic सोचें. Both are made of dense metal. The secret, believe it or not, lies entirely in the shape. So the absolute crucial point here is the concept of displacement. Listen carefully to this condition. An object floats when it displaces a volume of water that has a mass equal to the mass of the object. Displacement का basically मतलब है पानी को अपनी जगह से हटाना. If the displaced water's mass equals the object's mass, boom, it floats. Let's walk through this step by step. Step 1, take some dense metal. Step 2, shape it into a large, hollow boat. The shape is the real game changer here. Step 3, because of its massive shape, it displaces a large volume of water. बहुत सारा पानी अपनी जगह से हट जाता है. And step 4, it floats when the displaced water's mass becomes exactly equal to the boat's mass. Shape change करने से हमने actually उसका displacement बढ़ा दिया. And this brilliantly illustrates our point in everyday life. Think about just an empty steel vessel floating in a tub. Even though steel is super dense, the vessel floats perfectly क्योंकि उसकी bowl जैसी shape की वजह से it displaces enough water to support its own weight. It's literally a perfect everyday example of the displacement rule.
All right, moving on to section 4, knowledge check. Time for some interactive exam prep. अब हम आपकी learning को test करेंगे. Here is your very first question. What determines whether a substance sinks or floats in water? Is it A, total length, B, density, C, color, or D, temperature? Jaldi se apna answer apne mind mein lock kar le. Think back to the master rule we talked about right at the start.
And the correct answer is B, density. Awesome job if you got that right. Remember, density dictates if an object is heavier compared to its size. और यही एक single property determine करती है whether it's gonna sink or float. It is the absolute foundation of everything we've talked about today. Okay, moving on to question number 2. Under what condition does an object float in a liquid? A, displaces no water. B, higher density than liquid. C, displaces water mass equal to object's mass. Or D, volume greater than liquid. Yes, exactly. वही displacement वाला concept है जो हमने अभी थोड़ी देर पहले सीखा था.
Got it? The correct answer is C. An object floats when it displaces water mass equal to the object's mass. Let's look at the table to cement this logic. Condition 1, if it displaces water mass equal to object mass, the result? It floats. Condition 2, if it's denser and doesn't displace enough water, it sinks. So simple, right? Okay, one last question for you guys from Activity 8.3. If you compare equal volumes of wood and water, which one weighs less? A, the piece of wood. B, the volume of water. C, both weigh exactly the same. Or D, wood is always heavier. Yaad kare will beam balance wala visual experiment we just looked at. And the correct answer is A, the piece of wood. It weighs less for the exact same volume of water. Because its mass is lower for the same volume, it clearly means it is less dense. And the practical result? It floats. You guys have done an absolutely fantastic job mastering this whole classification process today. So let's bring it all together for a quick final summary. Here is your ultimate recap to remember. Density equals mass divided by volume. Denser objects sink, like clay. Less dense objects float, like wood. And, important point, dense materials can totally float if they are shaped to displace enough water, just like that massive metal ship. Before we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with a pretty mind-blowing point to ponder. Why does a person just keep floating in the Dead Sea without even trying? Like, you literally can't sink. Think about how the high salt content might actually affect the density of the water itself. I strongly encourage you to keep investigating the magic of physics all around you. Thanks for hanging out and learning with me today.